Chapter 1: The Awakening. The alarms blared through the spaceship's corridors as Captain Aria Vance jolted awake from her cryogenic slumber. Disoriented and groggy, she stumbled out of her pod, her eyes slowly adjusting to the flashing red lights. The ship shuddered violently, throwing her off balance. "What's happening?" Aria yelled, gripping the nearest console for support. "Captain, we've been hit by an unknown energy pulse," Officer Zane Ryder replied, his fingers frantically dancing across the control panel. "Main power is down, and we're drifting towards an uncharted planet." Aria's heart raced as she assessed the situation. They were light years away from Earth, on a mission to find a new home for humanity. The odds of encountering another advanced civilization were astronomical, yet here they were, under attack. "Initiate emergency protocols and wake the crew," Aria ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to restore power and regain control of the ship." As the crew hurried to their stations, another violent jolt rocked the vessel. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a massive alien ship looming before them. Its sleek obsidian hull dwarfed their own, and strange pulsating energy emanated from its core. "Alien vessel, this is Captain Aria Vance of the Earthship Odyssey. We come in peace," Aria transmitted, hoping for a response. Silence. Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice filled the bridge, sending shivers down Aria's spine. "Your presence here is a violation, Earthlings. You have trespassed into the territory of the Zalthar Imperium. Surrender, or face annihilation." Aria's mind raced, weighing their options. They were outmatched and outgunned, but surrender was not in her nature. She turned to her crew, her eyes blazing with determination. "We didn't come this far to give up now," she declared. "We are humanity's last hope, and we will not go down without a fight. It's time to show these Zalthar what we're made of." As the crew nodded in agreement, Aria knew they were in for the battle of their lives. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. The Enchanted Odyssey had only just begun, and the challenges that lay ahead would test their resolve like never before. Chapter 2: The Battle Begins. The crew of the Odyssey sprang into action, each member focused on their assigned tasks. The ship's engines roared to life as power was restored, and the shields flickered on just in time to absorb another energy pulse from the Zalthar vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Aria commanded, gripping the armrests of her chair. "Ryder, target their weapon systems. We need to level the playing field." Ryder's fingers flew across the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Aye, Captain, targeting their energy pulse emitters." The Odyssey banked hard to the left, narrowly avoiding another blast. The ship shuddered as Ryder fired a volley of missiles, striking the Zalthar vessel's shields. The alien ship barely flinched, its defenses absorbing the impact with ease. "Captain, their shields are too strong," Ryder reported, frustration evident in his voice. "Our weapons are barely making a dent." Aria's mind raced, searching for a solution. They couldn't outgun the Zalthar, but perhaps they could outsmart them. "What about the planet? Can we use it to our advantage?" Navigator Lena Solis studied the readouts, her eyes widening. "The planet has a dense atmosphere and strong electromagnetic fields. If we can lure the Zalthar closer, the interference might weaken their shields." Aria nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "Helm, set a course for the planet's upper atmosphere. Let's see if we can even the odds." The Odyssey dove towards the planet, the Zalthar ship in hot pursuit. As they entered the atmosphere, the alien vessel's shields began to flicker, weakened by the electromagnetic interference. "Now's our chance," Aria shouted. "Fire everything we've got." The Odyssey unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy beams, striking the Zalthar ship's exposed hull. Explosions blossomed across its surface, and the alien vessel veered off course, trailing smoke and debris. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the crew watched their adversary retreat, but Aria knew this was only the beginning. The Zalthar would not take this defeat lightly, and they still had to find a way off this uncharted planet. As the Odyssey descended through the atmosphere, a strange, shimmering energy field appeared on the view screen. It seemed to beckon them, drawing the ship closer with an inexplicable force. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual readings from that energy field," Science Officer Kai Nakamura reported, his eyes glued to the scanner. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Aria leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "Can you identify it?" Kai shook his head, perplexed. No, but it seems to be some kind of portal or gateway, and it's pulling us in. Despite their best efforts to break free, the Odyssey was drawn into the shimmering field, vanishing from the planet's atmosphere. The crew braced themselves, unsure of what lay ahead, as they were thrust into an entirely new realm, their fate uncertain. Chapter 3. The Otherworldly Realm. The Odyssey emerged from the shimmering portal, the crew blinking in disbelief at the sight before them. Gone were the familiar stars and planets of their own universe, replaced by a kaleidoscope of swirling colors and strange, luminescent structures that defied explanation. "Where are we?" Lena whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and trepidation. Kai frantically scanned the surroundings, his instruments struggling to make sense of the bizarre readings. I don't know. This place doesn't conform to any known laws of physics." Arya leaned forward, her mind racing. They had escaped the Zalthar, but now they faced an entirely new set of challenges. "Are we in any immediate danger?" "Not that I can detect," Kai replied, "but I'd advise caution. We have no idea what we're dealing with here." Suddenly, a melodic voice filled the bridge, seeming to emanate from the very fabric of space around them. "Welcome, travelers from afar. You have entered the realm of the Etheri." The crew exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Arya stood, her voice steady as she addressed the unseen presence. "I am Captain Arya Vance of the Earthship Odyssey. We mean no harm. We were drawn into this realm by accident." "Ah, but was it truly an accident?" the voice replied, a hint of amusement in its tone. "The portal only appears to those who are destined to find it." Arya frowned, unsure what to make of this cryptic statement. "Destined? What do you mean?" "All will be revealed in time, Captain Vance. For now, know that your arrival here is no coincidence. The Etheri have been waiting for you." The crew fell silent, grappling with the implications of the Etheri's words. Were they truly destined to be here? And if so, for what purpose? "What do you want from us?" Arya asked, her tone guarded. "Want? We want nothing from you, Captain. It is what you need from us that matters." Kai's console suddenly lit up, a series of glyphs and symbols flashing across the screen. "Captain, I'm receiving some kind of data stream. It's a map." Arya moved to Kai's side, studying the strange map. It depicted a winding path through the otherworldly realm, leading to a pulsing, central structure. "Where does it lead?" "To the heart of our realm," the Etheri replied. "There you will find the answers you seek, and the power to save your people." Arya's heart raced at the mention of saving humanity. Could it be possible? Could this strange realm hold the key to their survival? "How do we know we can trust you?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "Trust is earned, Captain. You must walk the path and discover the truth for yourself. But know this, the fate of your species hangs in the balance. The Zalthar are but one of many threats you will face." The crew looked to Arya, awaiting her decision. She took a deep breath, weighing the risks and the potential rewards. They had come too far to turn back now. "Set a course, Lena," she ordered, her voice filled with determination. "We'll follow the map and see where it leads. The future of humanity depends on it." As the Odyssey ventured deeper into the Etheri realm, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that their true journey was only just beginning. The challenges ahead would test their resolve, but they were ready to face whatever lay in store. For the sake of Earth and all they held dear, failure was not an option. Chapter 4. The Path of Trials. As the Odyssey ventured deeper into the Etheri realm, the crew found themselves surrounded by a surreal landscape of shimmering energy fields and floating islands of crystalline rock. The path depicted on the map led them through a series of increasingly challenging obstacles, each one testing their skills and resolve. The first trial came in the form of a massive, swirling vortex of energy that threatened to tear the ship apart. Arya gritted her teeth as she navigated the treacherous currents, relying on Lena's quick reflexes and Kai's readings to guide them through. "The ship's hull is straining under the pressure," Kai shouted over the roar of the vortex. "We can't take much more of this." Arya's hands flew over the controls, making split-second adjustments as the Odyssey pitched and rolled. "Just a little further," she urged, her eyes locked on the map. "There's an opening up ahead." With a final, desperate push, the Odyssey burst free of the vortex, emerging into a calm, shimmering expanse. The crew breathed a collective sigh of relief, but their respite was short-lived. "Captain, I'm picking up some kind of energy signature," Kai reported, his brow furrowed. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen." Arya leaned forward, studying the readouts. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Before Kai could respond, a blinding flash of light erupted from the console, engulfing the bridge. When the light faded, Arya found herself standing alone in a vast, empty space, the Odyssey and her crew nowhere to be seen. "Welcome, Captain Vance," a familiar voice echoed through the void. "You have passed the first trial." Arya spun around, searching for the source of the voice. "Where am I? Where's my crew?" "They are safe," the voice assured her. "This is a realm of the mind, a place where you must confront your deepest fears and doubts." Suddenly, the void shifted, and Arya found herself face to face with a figure she knew all too well, herself. But this version of Arya was different, her eyes cold, and her expression twisted with despair. "You can't save them," the doppelganger sneered. "You're not strong enough. You'll fail, just like you've always failed." Arya stumbled back, her heart pounding. She recognized the words as her own self-doubt, the nagging fear that had haunted her for years. But as she looked into the eyes of her twisted reflection, something stirred within her. "No," she said, her voice growing stronger. "I won't fail. I won't let fear control me any longer." The doppelganger's sneer faltered, and Arya pressed on. "I am strong enough. I will save my crew, my people, and anyone else who needs me. That's the promise I make, to myself and to the universe." With those words, the doppelganger vanished, and the void began to dissolve around Arya. She blinked, finding herself back on the bridge of the Odyssey, her crew staring at her with concern. "Captain, are you all right?" Lena asked, her hand on Arya's shoulder. Arya nodded, a newfound determination burning in her eyes. "I'm fine. Better than fine. I know what we have to do." She turned to Kai, gesturing to the map. "The trials are a test, not just of our skills, but of our spirits. We have to face our fears and overcome them if we want to reach the heart of the ethery realm." The crew exchanged glances, understanding dawning on their faces. They had all faced their own doubts and insecurities, but now they knew they could conquer them. As the Odyssey set off once more, following the path laid out before them, Arya felt a renewed sense of purpose. The trials ahead would be challenging, but she knew that she and her crew were ready to face them head-on. With each obstacle overcome, they grew stronger, more united in their cause. And somewhere deep within the ethery realm, an ancient presence stirred, sensing the approach of the chosen ones. The time of reckoning was drawing near, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Chapter 5. The Ethery's Heart. As the Odyssey continued its journey through the ethery realm, the crew found themselves surrounded by an ever-shifting landscape of shimmering energy and otherworldly phenomena. The trials they had faced thus far had tested their skills, their resolve, and their very spirits, but they knew that the greatest challenge still lay ahead. "Captain, the map is leading us to a massive energy signature," Kai reported, his eyes widening as he studied the readings. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Arya leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the view screen. "That must be the heart of the ethery realm. We're getting close." As they approached the energy signature, the Odyssey was suddenly engulfed in a blinding light. The crew shielded their eyes, and when the light faded, they found themselves in a vast chamber, its walls pulsing with an otherworldly glow. In the center of the chamber stood a towering structure, its surface etched with intricate symbols and patterns. The mysterious voice that had guided them through the trials echoed through the room. "Welcome, brave ones," the voice intoned. "You have passed the trials and proven yourselves worthy. Now, the power to save your people lies before you." Arya stepped forward, her heart pounding. "What must we do?" "Each of you must approach the structure and place your hand upon it," the voice instructed. "The ethery will judge the strength of your spirit and the purity of your intentions." One by one, the crew members approached the structure, placing their hands on its surface. As they did so, the symbols began to glow, and a surge of energy coursed through their bodies. Arya was the last to approach. As she placed her hand on the structure, she felt a presence within it, ancient and powerful. Images flashed through her mind, the struggles of humanity, the sacrifices of her crew, and the unyielding hope that had driven them forward. Your spirit is strong, Arya Vance, the presence whispered. You have faced your fears and overcome them. You are ready to wield the power of the Aetheri. With those words, the structure began to transform, its surface shifting and reshaping itself. When the process was complete, Arya found herself holding a shimmering orb of energy, pulsing with an inner light. This is the heart of the Aetheri, the voice explained. It contains the knowledge and power of our realm. Use it wisely, and it will guide you in your fight against the Zalthar. As the crew gathered around Arya, the orb began to glow even brighter. Suddenly, they found themselves back on the bridge of the Odyssey, the Aetheri realm fading behind them. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, Lena reported, her eyes wide. It's from Earth. Arya activated the view screen, and the image of a familiar face appeared, Admiral Alara Vance, her mother. Arya, thank the stars you're alive, Alara said, her voice filled with relief. We thought we'd lost you. Arya smiled, holding up the Aetheri orb. We found something, Mother, something that could change everything. As she explained their journey through the Aetheri realm and the power they had obtained, Alara's expression grew thoughtful. The Zalthar have launched a full-scale invasion, she said grimly. Earth is under attack, and our defenses are failing. We need you, Arya. We need the power of the Aetheri. Arya turned to her crew, her eyes blazing with determination. Set a course for Earth. It's time to end this war, once and for all. As the Odyssey leapt into hyperspace, Arya clutched the Aetheri orb tightly. She knew that the battle ahead would be the most difficult they had ever faced. But with the power of the Aetheri and the strength of her crew beside her, she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, but they would not fail. They would fight, and they would win, no matter the cost. Chapter 6. The Battle for Earth. As the Odyssey emerged from hyperspace, the crew was greeted by a sight that chilled them to the bone. Earth, their beloved home, was under siege. The Zalthar fleet, vast and menacing, swarmed around the planet like a horde of locusts, their weapons raining destruction upon the surface. My God, Lena whispered, her eyes wide with horror. They're everywhere. Arya's grip tightened on the Aetheri orb, its warmth pulsing through her fingers. We're not too late, she said, her voice filled with steely determination. We have the power to stop them. As the Odyssey approached the battle, the Zalthar ships turned to face them, their weapons charging. Arya's mind raced, searching for a way to use the Aetheri's power to turn the tide. Suddenly, the orb began to glow, its light growing brighter and brighter until it filled the entire bridge. Arya felt a surge of energy flowing through her, and in that moment, she understood what she had to do. Kai, link the orb to our weapons systems, she ordered, her voice ringing with authority. Lena, prepare to broadcast a signal on all frequencies. The crew sprang into action, their hands flying over their consoles. As Kai connected the orb to the ship's systems, Arya closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind to the ancient presence within. Lend us your strength, she whispered. Help us save our people. The orb pulsed in response, and Arya felt a wave of power washing over her. She opened her eyes, and the bridge was filled with a blinding light. Fire! She commanded, her voice echoing through the ship. The Odyssey's weapons roared to life, but instead of the usual bursts of energy, they fired beams of pure, shimmering light. The beams struck the Zalthar ships, piercing their shields as if they were made of paper. The enemy vessels shuddered and exploded, their debris scattering across the void. It's working, Kai exclaimed, his eyes wide with amazement. Their shields are useless against the Aetheri's power. As the battle raged on, Arya felt a presence beside her. She turned to see a shimmering figure, its form shifting and changing like the energy of the Aetheri realm. You have done well, Arya Vance, the figure said, its voice echoing through her mind. But the true test still lies ahead. The figure pointed towards the largest of the Zalthar ships, a behemoth that dwarfed the others. That is the flagship of the Zalthar fleet, it explained. Within it lies the key to ending this war. Arya nodded, understanding what had to be done. She turned to her crew, her eyes blazing with determination. We're going in, she said, her voice filled with resolve. We'll take that flagship down from the inside. As the Odyssey fought its way through the Zalthar fleet, Arya and her crew prepared for the final confrontation. They knew that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, but they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. With the power of the Aetheri at their side, they would not fail. They would fight, and they would win, no matter the cost. The battle for Earth had begun, and the Odyssey was the last hope for humanity's survival. Chapter 7. Infiltrating the flagship. The Odyssey raced towards the Zalthar flagship, its hull shimmering with the Aetheri's energy. Arya's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the massive vessel grow larger on the view screen. "Kai, scan for any weaknesses in their defenses," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. Kai's fingers danced across the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "There's a small opening in their shields near the aft section," he reported. "It's not much, but it might be enough for us to slip through." Arya nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "Lena, prepare a boarding party. We'll need to move fast once we're inside." As the crew readied themselves for the infiltration, Arya took a moment to gather her thoughts. She knew that the success of their mission would depend on her leadership and the strength of her team. The Odyssey approached the flagship, its weapons firing relentlessly to keep the enemy distracted. At the last moment, Kai piloted the ship through the gap in the shields, the hull scraping against the energy barrier as they passed through. "We're in," Kai announced, his voice tight with tension. Arya and her boarding party raced to the airlock, their weapons at the ready. As the doors hissed open, they were greeted by a group of Zalthar soldiers, their eyes glowing with malice. The battle was fierce, but Arya and her team fought with the skill and determination of true warriors. They pushed forward, their weapons flashing in the dim light of the flagship's corridors. As they made their way deeper into the ship, Arya felt a growing sense of unease. The Zalthar seemed to be anticipating their every move, as if they knew exactly where the team was heading. Suddenly, a blast of energy struck the wall beside Arya's head, missing her by inches. She spun around to see a group of Zalthar soldiers advancing on them from behind. "Take cover!" she shouted, diving behind a bulkhead as the corridor erupted in a hail of weapons fire. The team fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Arya knew that they couldn't hold out much longer. Just as all seemed lost, a shimmering figure appeared beside Arya, its form flickering in the light of the energy blasts. "You must reach the central control room," the figure urged. "There, you will find the key to ending this war." Arya nodded, her resolve strengthening. She turned to her team, her eyes blazing with determination. "We push forward," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "No matter what happens, we don't stop until we reach our goal." With renewed courage, the team fought their way through the Zalthar defenses, their weapons flashing in the darkness. They were battered and bruised, but they refused to give up. Finally, they reached the central control room, its doors looming before them like the gates of a fortress. Arya took a deep breath, knowing that whatever lay beyond those doors would determine the fate of humanity. As they prepared to breach the room, Arya felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Lena, her eyes filled with a fierce loyalty. "We're with you, Arya," Lena said, her voice unwavering. "Until the end." Arya nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. With her team at her side, she knew that they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The doors to the control room hissed open, and Arya and her team stepped forward, ready to confront their destiny. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and they would not fail. Chapter 8. The Heart of the Flagship. The doors to the central control room slid open, revealing a vast chamber bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. At the center of the room stood a towering structure, its surface covered in intricate patterns and glowing symbols. Arya and her team cautiously entered the chamber, their weapons raised and ready. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy that made their skin tingle and their hair stand on end. As they approached the central structure, a holographic figure materialized before them. It was a Zalthar, but unlike any they had encountered before. Its eyes were filled with ancient wisdom, and its voice resonated with power. "Welcome, Arya Vahana," the figure spoke, its words echoing through the chamber. "I am Zalthar Prime, the overseer of this vessel and the leader of our people." Arya stood tall, her eyes locked on the holographic figure. "We've come to end this war," she declared, her voice filled with determination. Zalthar Prime tilted its head, a flicker of curiosity in its eyes. "And how do you propose to do that, human?" Arya reached into her pocket and held up the etheri orb, its surface shimmering with an inner light. "With this," she said, her voice steady, "the power of the etheri." The holographic figure's eyes widened, and for a moment, Arya thought she saw a flicker of fear cross its features. "The etheri," Zalthar Prime whispered, its voice filled with reverence. "A power we once sought to harness, but ultimately proved too great for us to control." Arya took a step forward, the orb pulsing in her hand. "The etheri have chosen to aid us in this fight," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "They believe in the potential of humanity, and they will stand with us against those who seek to destroy us." Zalthar Prime was silent for a long moment, its holographic form flickering in the dim light of the chamber. "Perhaps we have underestimated your species," it finally said, its voice tinged with a newfound respect. "The etheri are not easily swayed, and their support is not given lightly." Arya nodded, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "We will not back down," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "We will fight for our right to exist, and we will not stop until the threat to our world is eliminated." Zalthar Prime regarded Arya and her team, its eyes searching their faces. "Very well," it said, its voice filled with a strange mix of resignation and admiration. "I will order our forces to stand down, and we will begin negotiations for a truce. But know this, Arya Vahana, the Zalthar will not forget this day, and we will be watching your species closely." With that, the holographic figure vanished, leaving Arya and her team alone in the chamber. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their victory slowly sinking in. Lena was the first to break the silence, her voice filled with a mix of relief and awe. "We did it," she said, a grin spreading across her face. "We actually did it." Arya turned to her team, her eyes shining with pride. "We all did it," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Together." As they made their way back to the Odyssey, Arya couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, and she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team. The battle for Earth was won, but the journey was far from over. With the power of the etheri at their side, and the strength of their bond as a crew, Arya knew that they could face anything the universe had in store for them. Chapter 9. A New Dawn. As the Odyssey soared through the stars, leaving the Zalthar flagship behind, Arya and her crew couldn't help but feel a sense of elation. They had accomplished the impossible, faced down an enemy far more advanced and powerful than themselves, and emerged victorious. In the ship's common area, the crew gathered to celebrate their triumph. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they recounted the most intense moments of the battle, their voices filled with a mix of relief and pride. Arya stood apart from the others, her gaze fixed on the stars outside the viewport. She felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Lena standing beside her, a soft smile on her face. "You did it, Arya," Lena said, her voice filled with warmth. "You led us to victory against all odds." Arya shook her head, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We all did it," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I couldn't have done it without each and every one of you." As the celebration continued, Arya found herself lost in thought. The battle may have been won, but she knew that the war was far from over. The Zalthar would not forget this defeat easily, and there were countless other threats lurking in the shadows of the universe. But as she looked around at her crew, at the faces of the people who had become her family, Arya felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had proven that humanity was capable of great things, that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, they could rise to the challenge and emerge stronger than ever. In the days that followed, the crew of the Odyssey worked tirelessly to help rebuild the shattered remnants of Earth's defenses. They met with leaders from around the world, sharing their knowledge and expertise, and helping to forge a new era of cooperation and unity among the nations of Earth. And through it all, Arya and her crew remained vigilant, always watching the stars for any sign of new threats. They knew that the universe was a vast and dangerous place, filled with wonders and horrors beyond imagination. But they also knew that as long as they had each other, as long as they stood together as a team, there was nothing they couldn't face. They were the guardians of Earth, the protectors of humanity, and they would never back down from the fight. As the Odyssey set course for new horizons, Arya felt a sense of excitement stirring in her heart. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them head-on, united in their determination to defend their home and their people. And with the power of the Aetheri at their side, and the strength of their bond as a crew, Arya knew that anything was possible. The universe may be vast and filled with danger, but they would never stop fighting for what was right. A new dawn was rising, and the crew of the Odyssey was ready to meet it head-on. Chapter 10: The Next Horizon. The Odyssey sliced through the inky void of space, its sleek form a beacon of hope against the endless darkness. On the bridge, Arya sat in the captain's chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen as stars streaked past in a dazzling display of light. Beside her, Lena worked at her console, her fingers flying across the keys as she monitored the ship's systems. "All systems nominal, Captain," she reported, her voice crisp and efficient. "We're on course for the Aetheri homeworld." Arya nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The Aetheri had been instrumental in their victory against the Zalthar, and she was eager to meet with them in person, to thank them for their support and discuss the future of their alliance. As the Odyssey drew closer to the Aetheri homeworld, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The crew had heard stories of the Aetheri's advanced technology and vast knowledge, and they were eager to learn all they could from their new allies. But as they entered orbit around the planet, a sense of unease began to grow in the pit of Arya's stomach. The Aetheri had always been a secretive race, rarely venturing beyond the borders of their own star system. What if there was more to their alliance than met the eye? As the Odyssey touched down on the planet's surface, Arya and her crew were greeted by a delegation of Aetheri officials, their faces hidden behind sleek, featureless masks. They were led through a maze of gleaming corridors, their footsteps echoing off the polished metal walls. And then, as they entered a vast chamber deep within the heart of the Aetheri citadel, Arya's breath caught in her throat. Before them stood a towering machine, its surface pulsing with a sickly green light. And at its base, connected by a web of wires and tubes, was a familiar figure, Dr. Takeshi Nakamura, the brilliant scientist who had disappeared years before. "Welcome, Captain Arya," Nakamura said, his voice echoing through the chamber with an eerie, mechanical cadence. "I've been waiting for you." Arya felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the truth. The Aetheri were not their allies, but their enemy. And Nakamura, the man she had once admired and respected, had betrayed them all. The crew of the Odyssey found themselves in a fight for their lives as they battled their way out of the Aetheri citadel, their weapons flashing in the darkness as they fought against the very technology they had once marveled at. And as they fled back to the Odyssey, Arya knew that their fight was far from over. The Aetheri had played them all for fools, and now the fate of the universe hung in the balance. But even in the face of this new threat, Arya and her crew refused to give up hope. They had faced impossible odds before, and they would do so again. They were the guardians of Earth, the protectors of humanity, and they would never stop fighting for what was right. As the Odyssey blasted off from the Aetheri homeworld, Arya felt a renewed sense of purpose burning in her heart. The universe may be vast and filled with danger, but as long as they had each other, as long as they stood together as a team, there was nothing they couldn't face. The next horizon awaited them, and the crew of the Odyssey was ready to meet it head-on. Chapter 11: Revelations and Requiems. The Odyssey hurtled through the void, its engines straining as it fled from the Aetheri homeworld. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Nakamura lay unconscious, his body ravaged by the Aetheri's twisted experiments. Arya stood over him, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "How could he do this to us?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "We trusted him." Lena placed a comforting hand on Arya's shoulder. "He was a pawn, just like us. The Aetheri used him, twisted his mind until he couldn't tell right from wrong." Arya clenched her fists, her jaw set with determination. "We have to stop them. We can't let them do this to anyone else." As the Odyssey raced towards Earth, Arya called a meeting of the ship's senior staff. They gathered in the briefing room, their faces grim as they contemplated the magnitude of the threat they now faced. "The Etheri have been manipulating us from the beginning," Arya said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "They used our alliance as a cover to infiltrate our defenses, to learn our weaknesses, and now they plan to use that knowledge to conquer not just Earth, but the entire universe." A heavy silence fell over the room as the crew digested this revelation. Finally, Marcus spoke up, his voice heavy with emotion. "We have to warn Earth. We have to prepare for the worst." Arya nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. "We will, but we can't do it alone. We need allies, people we can trust to stand with us against the Etheri." And so, as the Odyssey raced towards home, Arya and her crew began to reach out to their contacts throughout the galaxy, forging new alliances and strengthening old ones. They knew that the battle ahead would be the fight of their lives, but they were ready to face it head-on. As they drew closer to Earth, however, a new threat emerged. A massive Etheri fleet, larger than any they had ever seen before, appeared on the Odyssey's sensors, blocking their path home. "They're trying to stop us from warning Earth," Lena said, her voice tight with fear. "They know we're the only ones who can stop them." Arya's eyes narrowed, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll just have to fight our way through." The Odyssey charged forward, its weapons blazing as it clashed with the Etheri fleet. The battle was fierce and bloody, with losses on both sides. But even as the Odyssey took hit after hit, its crew refused to give up. In the end, it was Arya who made the difference. With a daring maneuver, she piloted the Odyssey straight through the heart of the Etheri formation, using the ship's advanced shields to protect them from the worst of the enemy fire. And as they emerged on the other side, the Etheri fleet lay in ruins behind them. But even as they celebrated their victory, Arya knew that the true battle was still to come. The Etheri would not give up so easily, and Earth was still in danger. As the Odyssey limped towards home, its hull scarred and battered, but its spirit unbroken, Arya made a solemn vow. She would defend her people, her planet, and her universe, no matter the cost. She would fight until her last breath, and beyond. The crew of the Odyssey had faced their greatest challenge yet, but they had emerged stronger and more united than ever before. And as they looked to the future, they knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together as a family. For they were the guardians of the universe, the protectors of all that was good and just. And they would never, ever give up. Chapter 12. The Last Stand. The Odyssey entered Earth's orbit, its battered hull a testament to the fierce battle they had just endured. On the bridge, Arya and her crew watched in horror as a massive Etheri fleet emerged from the depths of space, its ships bristling with advanced weaponry. "They're here," Arya whispered, her voice filled with dread. "The final battle has begun." As the Etheri fleet approached Earth, the planet's defenses sprang into action. The skies above the world's major cities filled with fighters and bombers, while on the ground, armies mobilized to repel the invaders. But even as Earth's forces fought bravely, it soon became clear that they were outmatched. The Etheri's technology was far superior, and their ships seemed to shrug off even the most powerful of Earth's weapons. Arya knew that they had only one chance. The Odyssey, with its advanced Etheri technology and its battle-hardened crew, was the only ship that could turn the tide of the war. "We have to take out their command ship," Arya said, her eyes blazing with determination. "If we can do that, we can disrupt their coordination and give Earth a fighting chance." The crew of the Odyssey sprang into action, each member taking their place at their station. Lena manned the weapons, while Marcus and the other engineers worked frantically to keep the ship's systems running at peak efficiency. As they approached the Etheri command ship, the Odyssey came under heavy fire. The enemy vessels swarmed around them, pounding them with laser blasts and missile barrages. But Arya refused to give up. With daring maneuvers and lightning-fast reflexes, she piloted the Odyssey through the heart of the enemy formation, dodging and weaving to avoid the worst of the fire. Finally, they reached the command ship. Its hull was massive and imposing, bristling with weapons and shielded by an advanced energy field. "Fire everything we've got," Arya commanded, her voice ringing out over the din of battle. The Odyssey unleashed a barrage of missiles and laser blasts, pounding the command ship's shields with everything they had. The enemy vessel shuddered under the onslaught, its shields flickering and failing. And then, with a final desperate push, the Odyssey broke through. Its weapons found their mark, tearing through the command ship's hull and setting off a chain reaction of explosions that ripped through its interior. As the command ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, the Aetheri fleet fell into disarray. Without their central coordination, they were vulnerable, and Earth's forces pressed their advantage. The battle raged on for hours, but in the end, Earth emerged victorious. The Aetheri fleet was destroyed, and those who remained fled back into the depths of space. On the Odyssey's bridge, Arya and her crew watched as the last of the enemy ships disappeared from their sensors. They were battered and exhausted, but they had done it. They had saved Earth, and perhaps the entire universe, from the Aetheri threat. As they landed back on Earth, they were greeted as heroes. The world had seen what they had done, and they knew that they owed their lives to the brave crew of the Odyssey. But even as they celebrated their victory, Arya knew that their journey was not over. There were still threats out there, still challenges to be faced. But she also knew that as long as they stood together, as long as they fought for what was right, they could face anything. For they were the guardians of the universe, the protectors of all that was good and just. And they would never, ever give up.